It started with a phone call. I'd been thinking about a dog for a while, but I wanted to make sure I knew everything before surprising my wife with one. So, I called the shelter to get some details on their current residents. And that's when they told me about Rocky. Rocky is a sweetheart, the shelter volunteer said warmly. Quiet, gentle, and well-trained. Does he have any special skills? I asked, thinking of my habit. Oh, he's a retired police dog, they confirmed. Highly trained. Interesting, I replied, intrigued. I think he might be a good fit. By the time I got home that night, my wife had already brought him back from the shelter. She texted on the way, Rocky's so cute, but I was thinking we should change the name. Maybe something fun, like Sergeant Bark, I replied, jokingly. Or how about Babe? You know, because he's a pig, sniffing everything out. When I arrived, Rocky was waiting. The moment I stepped through the door, his whole demeanor changed. The calm dog my wife had described turned into a snarling, barking whirlwind. His nose glued to my pocket. What's gotten into him? My wife asked, bewildered. Trying to pull him back, I forced a laugh. It's probably just the weed in my pocket. He's reacting to that, babe. Her face fell. Are you serious? Is this going to be a problem every time you... Yeah, it's not gonna work. I can't have him going crazy every time he catches a whiff. We should probably take him back. She looked devastated, holding back tears as she tried to hide her disappointment. But he's so perfect. Maybe a puppy would be better, I suggested firmly. Let's pick a different one tomorrow. After she reluctantly agreed, she stepped outside with Rocky to give him some air. Meanwhile, I decided to call the shelter just to confirm the dog's training. Hi, this is Rocky's well. Former owner now, I guess. We're bringing him back because we just can't have a retired drug-sniffing dog around here. The shelter volunteer paused. I'm sorry, sir, but Rocky wasn't a drug dog. My heart skipped a beat. Wait, what? Rocky was trained as a cadaver dog, they clarified. He's used to finding... Well, you know, I stared out the window, watching Rocky digging furiously in the backyard, barking in a frenzy as his paws struck deeper into the ground. I felt a chill creep over me. My wife can't know about my little hobby. What do you mean you've been sleeping with my boyfriend? I snapped, my voice breaking with shock and anger. Was sleeping with him. My sister, Alice, replied, barely flinching. I ended it months ago. Why are you telling me this now? Alice shrugged, her gaze sliding away. I want to get married with a clear conscience. Oh, really? I asked, my voice low with suspicion. Does that mean you told Brad? She shook her head slowly. No. And I don't plan to. Her answer confirmed my worst suspicion. She wasn't telling me to cleanse her soul. She had other motives. You're not trying to clear your conscience, I said, pointing a finger at her. You just want me out of the way. You don't want me anywhere near your wedding. That's not it, she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. I turned away, disgusted. Whatever, I spat, slamming the door behind me as I stormed out of her apartment. The second I was outside, I pulled out my phone and called my boyfriend. He denied everything at first, fumbling for excuses until I told him that Alice had already spilled the truth. Then his tone changed, turning to desperate apologies and pathetic excuses. He tried to blame Alice, saying she'd been the one to start it all. But I didn't care anymore. It takes two to tango, I told him icily before cutting him off for good. The next week was a blur of rage and heartbreak, spiraling highs and lows that churned endlessly, until one thought crystallized, bright and sharp. Alice wasn't getting away with this. After everything we'd shared, after all those years of supposed sisterhood, she'd crossed a line that couldn't be undone, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. Pretending to be ready to forgive, I reached out to Alice. I invited her over to my apartment, saying I wanted to put things behind us. She arrived without hesitation, smugly ready to celebrate my moving on. I handed her a drink laced with a dose she'd never recover from. That was too easy. I whispered to myself as her body went limp, the glass slipping from her fingers. With calculated calm, I dragged her body into the bedroom. My ex-boyfriend was already sprawled on the floor, a spreading stain of blood beneath him. It had been quick, he never saw it coming. I'd saved the most satisfying part for last. I swapped my clothes for Alice's, dressing her in my outfit while putting her own on myself. We were identical twins, indistinguishable to anyone but ourselves, and no one would think to question that the body in the bed was mine. The scene was perfectly staged. I slipped out of my apartment, calm and invisible, making my way to Alice's place. When I stepped through her front door, Brad looked up, mildly surprised. "How was your sister?" he asked. I shrugged. "I don't know." She didn't answer the door. "That's weird," he said, frowning. "Why'd she invite you if she wasn't even going to be there?" "It is weird," I replied, sounding as uncertain as possible. "Think I should call someone to check on her?" He shook his head dismissively. "Nah, you know how crazy she is. She's probably fine. Best just to forget about her." I allowed myself a small smile, one he didn't seem to notice. "You're probably right."
"Now remember," Dad said, his voice firm, "don't interact with him unless I'm present. Do you understand?" "Yes, Dad." "I mean it. You fixed my shirt, and tuck that in. He's here." The front door opened slowly, and Uncle Dave walked in, sweating profusely. He dropped his bag by the entrance and took off his boots before giving a tired grin. "It's hot out there," he muttered while wiping his forehead. Dad's expression remained stern. "As long as you're gone by morning." Uncle Dave nodded and smiled at me. He knelt down with open arms. "Come on, where's my hug? It's been a while, hasn't it?" I walked over and gave him a quick hug, but he held on tightly, making me feel uncomfortable. His arms felt clammy against my back. "Why are you wearing long sleeves?" he asked while lightly pulling at my shirt. I forced a smile and repeated what I had practiced. "I haven't been outside today." That was my cue to leave, so I escaped to my room, grateful for the distance. That night, I lay in bed trying to sleep, but every creak and sound seemed amplified in the silence. Eventually, I heard footsteps in the hallway that stopped right outside my door. My heart raced as the door slowly creaked open. A shadow entered, moving quietly as the door clicked shut behind them. I held my breath, hoping it was just a nightmare until I heard someone release a quiet breath, and then there was silence. The warmth of somebody being close hovered over me, getting closer until I felt a touch on my shoulder. Slowly, they rolled me onto my stomach and lifted my shirt. A faint light flickered from a pocket flashlight, and from the corner of my eye, I saw Uncle Dave's face intently focused on my back. His rough fingers traced the bruises gently, almost as if he was curious. Then he pulled away and left the room just as silently as he had entered. I stayed still, my heart pounding, until exhaustion finally overtook me and I fell asleep. The next morning, Uncle Dave was gone. Around noon, the phone rang. Dad was out, so I answered. "Hello?" "Hey there, buddy," came Uncle Dave's voice. My stomach twisted. "Uncle Dave?" "Yeah, it's me. Is your dad around?" "No, sir. He went to the store." "Good." He paused, his voice low and unsteady. After a long silence, he spoke again. "I wanted to talk to you about last night. I don't know if you were awake." "I was," I said quietly. "Well, then I'll just ask directly. I need you to be honest with me, okay?" "Yes, sir." "How did you get all those bruises?" "Carl?" "Carl?"